Hi everyone. So we're back for a follow-up, I guess, sort of review of the new GR IIIx, which is like literally just became available for purchase last week. So I took delivery of it like probably around Friday last week, I think. And yeah, if you're in the US, unfortunately, it's out of stock everywhere, like right now. I mean, just like any other manufacturer, um, the Ricoh and Pentax has also been hit with shortages and what have you. So yeah, if you're looking for one, and if like somehow this review convinced you to get one, unfortunately, you won't be able to buy one in the US. You could probably import one from Japan. You can actually buy it from Amazon Japan. It will let you purchase it, but I don't know. I haven't checked as of this recording if it's available in Japan now. I knew because I was at one point I was tempted to buy the GR IIIx in Japan, but good thing I waited for a week more, and then I got my camera. Anyway, so there's a separate video on the unboxing of it, so hopefully you've seen that, and then but here we'll dive into more the features and what have you. I mean, I'm not gonna dive into every specs or whatever, because like DP Review and other sites already does a marvelous job on that, and I'm not here to replace that. The few pertinent features though I would go over, like for example, just like the GR3 that came before it, it has the new hybrid autofocus. Unlike the previous one, the GR and the GR2, which only has contrast detect AF. The new one has hybrid AF, which means phase and contrast detect. And not only that, the GR3, the GR IIIx and the GR3 with the new 1.5 version 1.5 firmware, you also get not only the face detect but the eye detect as well, which kind of works pretty well, which is surprising considering it's relatively old tech, I guess. I mean, it's been a few years since the GR3 has been released, but anyway, yeah, it works. I'll see if I could put in some video about IAF performance or whatever. But yeah, so one of also the new things, or maybe relatively new things, which is kind of nice since the GR3, is that they ditched the proprietary interface with a new universal USB-C interface. So the advantage of that is yeah, it's USB-C. You could pretty much use any USB-C cable, which allows you also to internally charge the battery on the both the GR3 and GR IIIx. However, with that new feature, you also lose the separate charger, which is an additional $50 if you want to buy the Ricoh charger. But hey, I guess you can't have everything. Cost cutting measures, obviously, but at least they did support the internal charging, which is, I guess, in a pinch is good enough. Related to that, they switched from from the GR2 to the GR3. They switched to a smaller battery. It's still the universal Olympus point and shoot battery. Smaller, arguably, it's still 3.6 volts, but smaller capacity. so like the default is probably like 1000 milliamps compared to like 1250 I think on the older one. So like less photos per charge, and it's but yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing that they needed to change in order to have a smaller size compared to the GR2, right? This is probably more accurate. But yeah, I mean, it's still about, I don't know, I guess a little over quarter of an inch smaller than the GR2. And with that, like, while they do added things like, IBIS, but with those internal bells and whistles, they got rid of the built-in flash, which I'm kind of a little bit upset about, because I used the built-in flash on the GR, the original GR, and one can argue that, like, the new GR has better ISO performance, but we need to remember that field flash is not only used for, like, creating artificial light, but for me, I use it a lot for like filling in the shadows, lights in the shadows. So yeah, I mean, it's I guess one of the things that they also had to compromise in order to have a more compact size of the camera, which I'm not sure if it's really worth it, because like the GR is already pretty small. Like, making it smaller doesn't really, well, at least for me, it doesn't really, like, show any advantage whatsoever. I would have preferred to, like, have the older size with the flash, but yeah, I guess it is what it is. Hopefully the next iteration of the GR will bring back that flash, because it kind of defeats the purpose of having this small size if I need to carry a flash with it whenever I need it. Okay, so the other thing that's probably worth noting is that with the so the older GR has, like, a multitude of buttons in here. It has a lot of buttons, but believe it or not, well, at least for me, it's to me it doesn't look cluttered, because it has the enough number of buttons that you'll need in order to navigate through the menus and what have you, and the quick operations of it. But obviously the downside of it is, like, there's still a bit of some, like, it's not as quick as opposed to the newer one with the touch screen and all. It allows you to, like, quickly zoom, like, swipe left and right for, like, reviewing the images, and some of the controls that were originally done in buttons is now using the touchscreen controls. However, that being said, I personally would have preferred if they kept this exposure compensation button. They moved it in here instead, and then in the older one, when you press the adjustment wheel, it changes the ISO. Here it does the exposure compensation instead. Again, I would prefer that if they kept this, because I also change the ISO on the fly whenever I need to, because I still think that the auto ISO still doesn't quite work for me. I mean, I mean, it's not smart enough for me to trust it. And one of the last things that's worth noting, well, again, at least for me, is the internal memory. the built-in internal memory. I know this isn't much, like, it's 2 gigabytes. It, like, it holds around 140 140 full-size JPEGs. But believe it or not, there's been quite a number of times where I forget to put in an SD card on the camera, and the internal memory, like, came in on a pinch. I mean, still not ideal. It's still slower than an SD card, but again, it's there when you need it. And I do hope that Ricoh continues having the built-in memory in future iteration of the GR. So I just hope that it's like, it's bigger. I mean, it's a larger capacity. So for that, it's almost makes justification not to have those 2 slots, or, like, an extra slot for a second SD card for storage. So in the next section, I'll have like a short video comparing the autofocus performance between the GR and the GR3 and GR IIIx, like, how much improvement there is with the newer models. And also after that, we'll go through the sample images. One of the questions in the unboxing video is like, what is the size difference between the GR3 and the GR IIIx? Well, the short answer is there's really not much difference. Like, even like in a quick glance, for me, I cannot tell which one is which. Like, the only real difference between the two is that when it's collapsed, again, if it will only be noticeable if you look at it closely, is that the GR IIIx has like, the lens when collapsed is slightly thicker than the GR3. So let's do a quick measurement while we're here. So when collapse, the GR IIIx is about 35 millimeter, and for the GR3 it's 33 millimeter. So yeah, so it's not significant to be like, it's exactly the same almost. So size wise, even the length and the thickness is on the camera itself, it's pretty much the same, if not exactly the same. Okay, so here we're comparing the pinpoint autofocus for the original GR. As you can see here, trying to focus on the GR, and then this one with the GR3. As you can probably tell, with the hybrid AF of the GR, it's noticeably faster and less hunting. And then lastly is the Ricoh GR IIIx. You can see that it's a little bit slower than the GR3, but still quicker than the GR. Less hunting, more accurate autofocus. And this is again being compared with the original GR It's not, no contest. So one of the things I wanted to show right off the bat, because I took the Nikon 40 millimeter, the new 40 millimeter Z with it attached to a Z6, and then the Ricoh um, GR IIIx. So these are both shot wide open, just to show you, like, you know, for like performance wise, how these two look like, how they compare. Um, I don't know if you can see this in the video, but at least to me, I mean, I mean, image quality wise, it's like the Ricoh clearly has like better contrast and sharpness. Uh, no color fringing at all. Um, however, like, you know, me personally, I prefer the one shot with the Nikon, because it's probably the depth of field, it's probably the lens design, probably a little bit of both. You, again, I'm not sure if you could see this in the video, but at least to me, looking at it, the there's a like, you know, there's a clear separation between the subject and the background for the Nikon, for the one shot with the Nikon. Um, but yeah, but like, you know, the Ricoh is clearly no slouch, right? You know, and a couple of things that I need to point out as well is that, yeah, it's obvious that the Ricoh has um, higher vignetting, but there is no smearing in the corners, unlike the Nikon. Um, but I don't know. I mean, this could be like, you know, field curvature. Maybe it's not that. Anyway, but there's no um, lens profile for either of these optics, and the Ricoh still performed pretty well. 2.8 high contrast. Um, so yeah. As for the rest of the photos, um, well, you could see like the photos here that I'm showing here in the Flickr album that's linked down the description below. You should be able to see the full size of it, like, you know, um, look at it at a pixel level. But a couple of other things that I probably wanted to show you here, like how good the Ricoh lens is. So this one, right, shot wide open. Um, with the Nikon, you could see a little bit of CA, like color fringing. It's absent here. Like, I don't know. Trying to look at like some CA, like color fringing here, couldn't find any. The purple here is just a reflection of the body here, because the body of the car is purple. But wide open, no color fringing at all. So is this one also a 2.8? You'd think you'd see like a lot of color fringing here, but no, nothing. Um, this shot again, another one of those, like, you know, shots that would challenge the optics. Here you could see a tiny bit, maybe, so it's focused right here. You'd see a little bit of cyan here, a tiny bit of magenta here. uh, or I could probably just I'm imagining it. Maybe it doesn't exist. But again, with like a challenge, like for most lenses, this is where most of their weaknesses would show up. But it's almost non-existent with the Ricoh. And and this is one shot using the macro mode. Again, I can't really complain much with the Ricoh. It's sharp. I don't know what to say. It's so sharp, it's almost boring. This is an example of, like, I guess, to showcase like how thin of depth of field you could come up with certain shots using the camera. This is shot wide open. You could see, like, the the, sh- the shallow depth of field with nice out of focus rendering. Not as nice as the Nikon 40 millimeter, but, like, given the constraints of physics, and it's pretty good. Okay, so I guess at this point you'll probably realize that, like, I mean, hopefully enough information I've provided so that you could make a decision of whether you want to get the GR3X. Um, and as far as, like, my thoughts about it, um, or prediction, so to speak. So I think we've already read a number of press releases from Pentax that they're not going to do any mirrorless cameras, like, for their SLR lines. They're gonna, for their digital camera line, at least Pentax goes, they will remain a DSLR. Like, however, I think people keep forgetting that Pentax is just one half of the company. There's still the Ricoh part of it, their parent company. And I think my prediction, or at least what I want to happen, is that Ricoh remain on this small, like, the mirrorless aspect of of their cameras. What I do hope, and I'm not saying this is what they'll do, what I do hope is that they come out with a mirrorless interchangeable camera that is based um, on this form factor, whether it's APS-C or a full frame. Full frame would arguably be better for me, and it will be even better if they join the Sigma Leica Panasonic L lens mount alliance. That will be, like, the next best step for the iteration of the camera. But of course, keep it stills photography centric. None of that video nonsense, because I personally don't care. Like Nikon, Canon, Panasonic already does better. It doesn't really worth, at least for me, competing in that space. But, like, a stills camera with an L mount, with the ergonomics of this, sign me up. Day one, I'm buying the camera.